All right, now let's also welcome back Professor of Political Science at the University of Pennsylvania and specialist on the modern history and politics of the Middle East, Ian Lustick. Professor, I hold two copies of stories in my hand here, one saying that despite pressure from the United States and Israel, Switzerland is holding a summit on the Palestinians. Israel then slamming Ireland over support for the Palestinians. It would seem that the Palestinians are gaining grounds with a lot of nations around the world right now because many people would say because of the aggressive stance that Israel has taken right now. How do we then look at this as the world is putting more and more pressure on Israel and basically coming out in favor of giving the Palestinians their chance to say something?
Let's try to unpack this. What's been happening is for years, the situation has moved further and further away from where negotiations could really lead to a viable Palestinian state. There are over 500,000 Israeli settlers in the West Bank, and the whole constellation of power in Israel is dead set against providing enough for Palestinians to have a viable state. That creates a situation in which no one really believes there will be such a process. And instead, for the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to be seeing a struggle over democracy in that whole country. In that context, it's that we have to understand partly why Netanyahu is going for new elections and why the people in Israel are so unhappy with him. Because he is so clumsy in the way new settlements are created just at the worst possible time, that the international community can arrange itself very clearly against Israeli policies. So the Israeli struggle now is against a world that's increasingly critical of it, especially after the Gaza war. Now, a new government coming out of Israel is unlikely to move the country toward a two-state solution, but might be much better at defending itself against this cascade of criticism coming out of the UN and Europe.
So is it fair to say then that, taking your words, what many people have said, that the bumbling, if you will, by Benjamin Netanyahu is helping to create a favorable climate for the Palestinians, exactly what they don't want?
Well, yes, it's bumbling, but it's also the people who are behind Netanyahu in this current government are ideologically extremely hardline, and they don't see many of the things that we might see as bumbling. They see it as what Jews in their own land ought to be doing, even if it looks cruel to the rest of the world with respect to the Palestinians.
And mindful of the situation in which Israel finds itself, there's the Russian bareback with Mr. Putin and those of his ilk doing more than playing footsie with Iran, offering active support, it would seem, of Iran as the United States tries to continue negotiations about the possibility of nuclear weapons finally coming to Iran, I should say.
It's a very complicated situation because for the Israelis, yes, Russia and the Soviet Union have been a traditional enemy. On the other hand, Avigdor Lieberman's Israel Beitenu party, supported mainly by new immigrants from the former Soviet Union, actually admire Russia and Vladimir Putin. And his role as foreign minister in the Netanyahu government has made it quite a complicated situation for Israel. Israel is one of the few states who did not come out and condemn the annexation of the Crimea, for example. It took a lot of American pressure to get them to say anything about it. So it's also in Syria, the Russian position is not necessarily completely diametrically opposed to Israel's. Even the United States, to an extent, is indirectly working with the Assad government against ISIS. So it's a very complicated situation in which politics there, as most other places, makes very strange bedfellows sometimes.
We've got about 40 seconds here, Professor. Would it be fair to say then that as far as Benjamin Netanyahu is concerned and looking at what the Russians are doing with missiles and Syria's involvement, that he is not afraid to look square in the eye of the bear and basically say, come on, do your worst, we're ready?
Actually, that is not Netanyahu's strong point, and it's not his reputation. His reputation is someone who tells the last person he sees that he's really on his side. And the rap on him from the right in Israel has been that he does not stick to his guns at the final in the final analysis.
We are going to find out here as we follow this, certainly. Professor Ian Lustick, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. To you and your family, please, we all wish you a very happy holiday, and we hope to talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right, J.D.?
Interesting assessment of Netanyahu.
Indeed.
From the academician, if it were not based on studies, you'd think he's not much of a fan.
You would certainly think that as you watch Netanyahu, you would think that he is that guy who would look right in the eye and say, come on, take us on.
Again, American perception differs from what's happening on the streets of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and we'll see what happens with this snap election in Israel. Meantime, if you've got some comments, why don't you weigh in? Why don't you tweet us what you think of what you just heard? You can send it to us at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. And we're coming back.